want to talk about how homeschooling is not the same as school at home, because that is something that is super important when you're homeschooling. So homeschooling is not the same as traditional schooling because you are going to get so much more one-on-one time with your child than they ever would in a classroom. And I don't think that a lot of people realize how you can be so different at home, and you don't have to do a complete mock-up of school because of that. You don't need busy work. You don't need to be doing school for 5 to 7 hours like a brick and mortar school. Okay, you don't need any of those extras because you have that one-on-one learning. It's going to take less time. So even if you're homeschooling multiple kids, it's still not going to take the same amount of time because you can do a lesson, have them go do their work. Do a lesson, have them go do their work. Have the big kid play with the baby while you're helping the middle kid. All of that. So it's going to take a lot less time. You can also move at your child's pace at home. So that kind of goes with not finishing your curriculum. So if your child needs to move slower, move slower. If your child's going to fly through and doesn't need that entire year, fly through, move on. It's not a big deal. So that's the beauty of homeschooling, is that we're able to move at that pace. We're able to go slower. We're able to go faster. There's no such thing as being behind in homeschooling. Let me repeat that. There is no such thing as being behind when you are homeschooling. If your child is a struggling speller, if your child is a struggling reader, or struggles at multiplication, or whatever it is, you do not have to follow the guide that your curriculum gives you for when stuff should be accomplished. And that, again, that's the beauty of homeschooling. Do what your kid needs to do at the pace that they need it. They cannot be behind. They will eventually learn to read. If they are 7, 8, 9 years old and they are still struggling, that is okay. I guarantee you by the time they are 18 years old, they're going to be reading. They're not going to go on with their entire life. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions with children with dyslexia, children with different learning disabilities. It may take them long, they may struggle for longer, and they may not read at the same level that someone else their age does, but that does not mean they are behind. They are at the perfect level for them. And so that's very important. It's very hard as a parent to get that in our thick skulls, right? That we want to compare our kids, and we want to say our kids are on level, our kids are doing amazing, they are doing just as good as their peers, all of that. Your child is an individual, and no child is going to learn the same thing the same way. So there's no such thing as being behind in your homeschool. Move at your child's pace. Do school how it works for you. I've already said this. Don't work on how your neighbor works. Don't homeschool the same way that your cousin does. Don't homeschool the same way that I do, by all means. I'm going to be showing off stuff that I love, but if you're like, this stuff is junk, it will not work for us, don't use it, right? I cannot tell any one person how to homeschool because your family is going to be so different than my family. All I can do is give you the resources for you to build on to find what is perfect for your homeschool. So you don't have to do that stuff at grade level necessarily either. So that is my favorite part of homeschooling, is I'm able to combine both of my children to learn the same thing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at grade level. So if we're reading a story and I want to work on writing with that, I may have my 6-year-old do copy work, while I may have my 10-year-old write a paragraph about it. But we're still doing the same stuff at the same time. We are still doing the same base together. And that saves, for one, it saves us time. I'm not having to do 2 separate language arts, right? I'm not having to take 20 minutes with him and 20 minutes with him. I'm able to take 20 minutes, read a story, and have them do whatever work at their grade level. And so there's so much curriculum out there that's designed for that as well. I know, which one was it? Let me go back to my list here. For science, when we used Answers in Genesis, they specifically had in their book, if you have a little one, do this, middle school do this, older children do this. And it laid out what you should do for multiple ages. So we were able to buy one science and use it for both of my children. And then they can do the activities afterwards for their grade level. So there's so many resources out there where you can do that, and you can have everything all together as a family, learning the same topics, having the same conversations, because my 10-year-old may not think of something that my 6-year-old thinks of, or vice versa. And they may say different things that makes the other one think about it. That then builds on that and builds on the lesson. And then the next thing we know, we're on YouTube down some rabbit hole looking up how lizards live through the winter, right? And so that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of doing everything together as a family, is that you're able to take those lessons and have them work for those multiple ages. So I believe, let me go back through my list here. I believe that does it for today's session. So I'm going to close this. Next week, like I said, we're going to talk about planning, and I am really, really pumped to share all of my planning resources with you guys. So that is it for today, and I am so happy you guys joined me, and I will see you next time.